Welcome to the Introverted Doctor podcast. This podcast is about how you can live your best life at work, home, and play. And right now, we certainly are getting challenged in a way that we have never seen before. I'm Dr. Lalit Chawla, and I'm going to skip the original introduction that I normally do and dive into the topic of this podcast. My hope is that this will help you and help us look at these times with some perspective. Now, I would really be honored if you would share this with others in the hope that some of the things that I'll be talking about helps others. Never have we ever needed each other more at the present time, especially to weed through the avalanche of information and the level of emotion that is coming down upon us. This episode is about fear and loss. Right now, the majority of us are having fears at some level about losing something, whether it's our health, our work, our relationships, financial loss of our routines, watching sporting events, visiting people, etc. Loss is a tremendous driver for us, and it really is a big motivator for many of the actions we take, because a loss or a potential loss or losing something can be very painful. And one of the things we will remember in this time of pandemic planning and the great toilet paper craze and the way some people are hoarding resources is, what did we lose and what resulted from that? So again, what did we lose and what resulted from that? And there are really two types of losses: potential loss and actual loss. Whenever we're experiencing a potential loss or have actually lost something, we have to ask ourselves, did we lose it? Was it permanent? Can we recover? But there's an important fourth question that is equally important, and that helps reframe the situation. Something I've had to remind myself at many stages in my life, and that is, did we gain something instead? And right now it may be hard to answer that because people are feeling a level of uncertainty about many things, especially their financial income and for the financial income of others and the economy of their country and the world economy. One distinguishing question that can help put things into perspective is, has there been a loss or a temporary suspension of life as we know it? And will we reawaken to other things that we can do? And as I've said, is there a gain or potential learning we can get? And maybe take a moment and ask yourself, what are you fearing right now? And is there something you've gained in the interim or may gain if you let yourself look at things hard enough? Now, for some of us, we can't always answer that question because we can get stuck in a place of uncertainty. I know I've experienced this in my life many times. The most notable time was when I was waiting for the final biopsy for a cancerous tumor from my dad's surgery. It was really unnerving, and I was like a nervous wreck. Not knowing is hard because we don't know what will happen in the future. But living in tomorrow instead of today is defeating the potential joy of today. And I know you know this, but when I was worried about tomorrow, I wasn't really good to my dad, and I was worried, and it showed. My dad was fine with it, and he could tell I wasn't. I was so preoccupied with the potential future, and I was so nervous. And he said to me, he said, son, don't worry about it so much. What will be, will be. Be present with me now and learn to do that, because so many things in your life, my friend, he said, is all about learning patience and waiting. So get used to it. And that really, put a lot of things into perspective for me at that time. And it's something I really had to practice. And when he said that, that also reminds me of an important saying by philosopher Lao Tzu, which I've said in a previous podcast episode. And that is, if you are depressed, you are living in the past. If you are anxious, you are living in the future. If you are at peace, you are living in the present. So that's a really valuable life lesson. And I think we're all trying to live right now in the present in these uncertain times. And in this time right now, we have time with ourselves and our family, our friends. And this is an opportunity to improve our health and develop our relationships, because I can tell you, when people are on their deathbed, they are not saying, I wish I worked more and had more money. They are saying, I wish I had made more time for my health and the people that matter to me. And I know you know this. I know you've probably heard this before, but right now, this is really, so many people are always looking for a pause button in their life, and some people actually should have a pause button in their life because they're just oblivious to what's important. And now we have it. So this is a great time to look at, how are you managing your food intake, your sleep routines, your proper relaxation routines? And I don't mean drinking alcohol and staying up late and getting caught up in the hysteria of everything that's happening. But what are you doing more of that builds you and your family and the community up? One of the biggest fears right now is that people are fearful of getting sick. I mean, this is probably one of the top 2 fears people are having right now. So look at how you can improve your physical health. Have you been taking time to actually do the things that you know that can improve your physical and mental health? Because if you have, that's awesome. But then the next question is, can you elevate that to the next level? Now is really a time to be focusing on families and personal actions and taking inventory on how you're doing as an individual. How are you doing as a family and a collective? How are you doing with your friends? One of the things I always talk about is, taking a look at your hero goals. H stands for your health. E stands for your educational goals, what you're trying to learn and improve. And R stands for your relationships. And O stands for other things you want to improve on that could benefit you and your community. So are you going to just give your kids the iPads and also get absorbed personally in Netflix or other things? Or are you going to play and engage for a few hours a day, or do things like reading, drawing, playing an instrument, playing games, reading a book? There are so many things we can do right now if you're sitting at home, but it's really up to you how you're going to choose that. Right now I'm reading a book, From the Ashes, and it's a wonderfully, beautifully written book by Jesse Tissel. And it's a nationally winning a lot of awards nationally. Now, on more of a serious note, I think this has all been quite serious, but now I realize that for some of us and some of the people, it's really harder economically than it is for other people. We have many homeless people who are being forgotten, and that's a real situation. So ask yourself, wherever you are, how bad is it? I shared a meme that really puts so much of what's happening right now into perspective. And it said this: many of our grandparents were off to war. We just have to stay inside and wash our hands. You got this. And, that really is a real good perspective change. And that changed the way I looked at things. And I shared that in my Facebook feed, and, and other people have been sharing something similar. So some people are finding it hard that right now that their way of life and routines have been changed. But it's useful to think, what do you need versus what do you want? And more than ever, this gives us a time to re-look and rethink about things. Think of this as an opportunity to see how you reframe your thinking and how you will set up things as a leader and a role model for others. And let's take perspective. We've all more than likely lost something before, we've gotten through it. Haven't you lost money, a relationship, a friend, or a family member, a job opportunity, but you survived it? And when you look back and said, boy, that was the best thing that ever happened to me, Or if you were in a relationship and that went sour, and later you realized, maybe that was for the better. That person was a jerk. Or a job loss that made you look at what you had to learn to become better. Or a health setback that made you really appreciate life better and your own health better, and knew that you had to change something. Some of the most amazing changes I've seen personally as a doctor is when people get sick, or they've had a little mini stroke, or they've had an injury, and they said, no more, I'm not going to do this again. I quit smoking, and this is a new change for me. So really build up and recharge to live your best life and optimize your health. The phrase of the day and of the week is reframe your vision, schedule your rest and your health, and amp it up. Give the energy to look at the opportunities in your life and ask yourself, if you did lose something, is it truly a loss? And has it happened? And if you would lose it, to what extent do you think it will actually happen? And do you think that you are alone and no one is there to help you? Can you accept it? I believe people can accept things if they let themselves believe they can, and that they are resourceful enough, and there are systems in place, especially if you live in the countries, where I live, that there's so many great resources in place, and all you need to do is just ask for help. What can you do moment to moment to plan for it instead of worry for it? Please share this message if you think it will help. Together, we got this. Stay calm, find daily joys, and live with intention. A shout out to my colleagues, my nurse friends, doctors, and allied healthcare professionals who are helping to keep our society safe and happy. And a shout out to all of the wonderful people who are doing the right things by social isolation and connecting with others and helping the vulnerable who need your help right now as well. So I'm Dr. Lalit Chawla, and thank you so much for listening. May great health and happiness and magic meet you and your family and the people you love right now. And have a great day, have a great weekend, and I will see you next week.